This is real strange. I usually do tax training seminars in the morning, and they're still kind of wide awake yet. It's even tougher after dinner here. My name is Bill Addison. I'm a certified public accountant. I've got to go really fast because we have a lot of good issues today, and we have 8 good items to talk about. And let me give you a little background on how we got these 8 items. The bishop asked us, me and Ron, for what do you think are the most important things impacting the church financially speaking today? And Ron and I gave him a list of these 4 things. So today what you're going to see is 8 different types of topics. If some of your concerns or some of your problems are outside these topics, Ron and I will be in the back after this seminar because we've got to clear out at about 6 o'clock. We can talk to you more about any other financial items you want to talk about. Ron and I's job here today is to service your needs financially speaking today. So the bishop asked me this. He says, Bill, would you like to come down to Florida and give a training seminar? And I looked out the window and we just had 6, I'm from Michigan. We've just had 6 inches of snow. The forecast was for freezing rain and a low of 3 degrees. And I told the bishop, I says, Bishop, I'll come, but I think it's going to take about 3 weeks to train all of your folks. And the bishop says, Bill, you have 2 hours. I says, that'll do here. All right, we're going to move on here. I've got to figure out how to do the clicker. All right, Josh. All right, here's what we're going to talk about. My topics today are, the first one is sales tax. And what we're going to talk about sales tax is churches appear in the state of Florida right now, our churches appear to be paying sales tax. Almost every state in the union has a sales tax. Almost every sales tax is the same. That is, a purchase made by a church is subject to a sales tax. And I'm going to give you the overall kind of the theory of what sales tax is right now. Sales tax for almost every state is levied on every transaction regardless of who makes the purchase, which includes churches. However, almost every state does this. It allows a church to exempt out of state sales tax. But the burden of exempting out of sales tax is upon the church itself. So if you have never filed for exemption, you are probably not sales tax exempt. All right. The second thing is all of the exemptions in the state of Florida expire every 5 years. So if your exemption is greater than 5 years, you probably don't have a good one. All right, so the next series of slides, and for about the next 10 minutes, what we're going to talk about is how to exempt out, what is exempted, and how do I re-exempt out after the 5 years. I'm also going to talk about a couple cases that I've personally been involved with where sales taxes from a church was not allowed by the state. So there's a couple cases, there's a couple things that we cannot exempt out of. So what we're talking about, we're a flicker ahead. Go one back, please, if you would. What we're talking about is usually sales tax is levied upon these three things in large amounts. So here's the materiality of sales tax itself. If you have $100,000 of expenditures, and they're non-payroll expenditures, which most churches probably do, you're probably paying around $6,000 of sales tax that you should not be paying. So the dollar amount, the materiality of all this is very large. So before I came down back to Florida, I did kind of a little analysis. I called up 4 churches and asked, are you sales tax exempt and can you prove it? 3 of the churches were sales tax exempt, but didn't have everything exempted. Some of those items in there were not exempted because you have to go out and the church has to exempt them, which means if you get a new utility provider, you have to refile again to be exempt. So 3 churches exempted most of the stuff out. 1 church was not exempt at all. So they paid state sales tax on everything that they bought. Okay, so that's the material. The dollar amount is very large. Go to the next one. All right, here's the 3 things that you have to do. Each church has to qualify for exemption, apply for the exemption, and once you receive the certificate, you are state sales tax exempt. All right, so we're going to talk about how to do the first one. Flip the side of the next one. You should have been handed out this really cool picture of a bird from the IRS. It's a picture of the IRS board. And what this is this is the Church of God exemption. This is a public document. I would suggest, first of all, that every church have one of these on file. It does a couple things for us. It proves exemption. It proves that we can be contributed to and we can give tax deductions. But what it proves in this case to the state of Florida is we qualify as a church to be sales tax exempt. So a little later on today, I'm going to make a couple suggestions to you when you send in an application. You need to make copies of this and attach it to your application that you're going to send to Florida. All right, go to the next one, please. All right, prepare the application. Each of you hopefully got a copy of the application. All right. Oh, nope. Well, we'll get you one if you don't have one. Where's our ushers? On the top, it says two real important things. Application for consumer certificate of exemption. And the next thing that's really important for the state of Florida is no fees are required. All right. We have to prepare this and send in documentation with this to prove that we are state sales tax exempt. Go to the next one. And here's what we have to do. When we have this letter with a neat little bird on it from the IRS, it proves the top thing. It proves that we are not-for-profit status. So when you send in your application for the first time or a renewal, a copy of this document should be with it. The other thing that the state of Florida wants to prove that you're exempt is the proof of your existence, where you are. And those are the items that they'll accept as proof that you are a resident of the state of Florida and eligible for sales tax exemption. So if you have a utility bill, a lease agreement, a mortgage statement, that also has to be made a copy of, and it's going to go with this application. All right, here's where we kind of run into some problems sometimes is what can we purchase that's sales tax exempt? And here's the rule. We can purchase when used in carrying on customary, I don't know if that applies to Church of God, nonprofit religious activities. So basically it says two things. And again, Florida's law regarding sales tax is no different from state sales tax laws anywhere else. Basically two things have to happen. It has to be paid by the church for the use of the church. All right, two things. All right. I'll give you a case where a state took issue to a Church of God purchase. All right, this is the case that I was involved in, is that a church, and this church is not in Florida, had a senior citizens program where they all bought tickets to take a cruise. The tickets were about $2,000. They got about 100 people. But what they did is the church sent in everybody's check to the vendor to buy it, did not send a church check. The state there said, you cannot have state sales tax exemption. It is an individual purchasing this and not the church. So basically two things. Almost every state says the same thing. Purchased by the church and for the church usually will be state sales tax exempt. All right. All right. When you get your receipt back, when you get an approved certificate, here's my suggestion. What you should do is review all your vendors. Make sure that you're exempt for everything, because here's what's happened. If you get a new telephone, a new cell phone that's for the church, you're not sales tax exempt. You have to, again, apply for exemption for everything that you have. So the first thing I would suggest is you review all your accounts, make sure you're exempt. The next thing you do is, if you're not exempt, here's what they suggest you do. Make a copy of your certificate that you've been approved and send it to the vendor. I'm not going to pay any more state sales tax because the state of Florida has exempted me. All right? Last thing I would suggest that you do is make copies of it so anybody that goes to Myers or Walmart's or any place purchases items, consumers' goods, with this certificate, so even at Myers we are exempted from state sales tax. All right. Here's the other thing that this does, and this is unique to Florida. When you are exempt from sales tax. When you receive this approved exemption, you are exempt actually for two things. One is you are exempt from paying sales tax on items that you purchased. But the real unique thing that Florida has different from everybody else is when you receive the exemption, you're exempt from withholding sales tax. Because a church, apparently, in the state of Florida, must withhold sales tax on its purchases unless they have been exempted out. Okay? So it does two things for you. Go to the next one. All right. Go to one more. All right. Oh, this is for the next one. All right. Any questions real quick on sales tax? Yes? Sales tax? Apparently, yes. Because go back to, if you would. Yes, right here. Yeah, what this says is, yeah, here's what usually laws say. A law says it applies to everybody. So sales withholding tax applies to everybody. Now, there are usually some exemptions, like if it's a one-time event, most states say you don't have to withhold. All right? But if you consistently make sales, all right, I have a church that owns a hotel. They consistently make sales. They have to withhold sales tax. All right? What this is saying is, it appears that the church has to withhold unless it's exempt and have been granted exemption. Anything else? All right. Go ahead, one more. The church has a bookstore. It is my understanding that unless you're exempt, you are to withhold and remit, unless you are exempted. So if you're not exempted, you probably need to be exempted immediately. One more. Go ahead. Okay. The question is, the telephone. So who said yes? Yes, he's a smart person. He said yes, so I'm going to go with him. Yeah, it falls. Does the church buy it? And is it for the benefit of the church? Well, it benefits the church, and it can attract a qualified pastor to be pastor there. That's what it does.
The cable is included in the phone and the internet.
Yes. As long as again, paid for by the church for the benefit of the church.
As long as it's paid for with the church cable.
Yes, but the phone has to also be part of the church. Anything else? All right, first tag team.